probably the controversial or the difficult topics, I would say, in the next few lecture series on unital ventilation. And one of the first talk would be on volume ventilation. And the most important aspect of volume ventilation is we all know volume controlled ventilation is the most physiological way you can ventilate a newborn. Now, but when it comes to volume ventilation, there are few jargons that we need to be clear about. What is volume controlled, what is volume targeted, what is volume guaranteed, and what is the evidence to say this works fantastically as we assume it should be working. And to clarify most of these doubts on volume ventilation, we have a very young dynamic speaker, Dr. Prashant Vayan, who's done his DM neonatology from Johns and who's currently working as assistant professor in Johns. So Prashant, over to you. I know you had a technical hitch, but I'm sure now you will have a smooth flow in your talk and your presentation. Over to you,
Sure,
Prashant.
sir. Thank you, sir. Thanks. Thank you for the introduction, sir. I'm really very sorry about the technical aspects of this. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Yeah. So, a very good afternoon. I'm glad to be a part of this newborn lecture series. And I thank Pradeep sir, Praveen sir, and my dear friend Abhishek for giving me this opportunity to be with you guys today. Today we'll discuss about the volume ventilation and explore if this really guarantee the ventilation. And we also will look at what are there any benefits of looking at it. So as Pradeep sir was mentioning, so it probably closes to the physiological aspects of breathing. So we'll see how it works. And today I will touch upon only the volume guarantee, which can be added on to the conventional mode of ventilation. I'm not touching on volume guarantee with high frequency ventilation. I'm sure ventilation service should be taking it up in the subsequent series. So without wasting much time, let's get on to it. So the title says the volume ventilation, does it guarantee ventilation? Let's see if we can prove the point here. So overview of my topic will be a little bit of ventilation basics, just 2 slides. And the most important thing is to look at the other side of ventilation. So that is, are we causing any injury with this ventilation? And we'll look at how we can protect our lungs. And what do we need to why do we need to target volume in ventilation? So that we need to ask, and we'll see if we can get an answer to this. We'll also differentiate between pressure controlled and volume ventilation here. And we also try to differentiate between volume controlled and volume targeted ventilation. So a little bit on that I'll be covering. And in detail, we look at volume guarantee, or it is called targeted ventilation also. How does it work? Can we use it? How can we use it in practice? And we also look at the evidence. And the other most important thing is to troubleshoot. I'm sure most of you will be having questions about how to troubleshoot this VG so that we can adopt it. All right. Yeah. So we know the indications of mechanical ventilation, right? Any baby who has apnea, who has respiratory failure, or if the baby is having inadequate oxygenation, these becomes an indication to mechanically ventilate them. But we also know that improving oxygenation can be done in a spontaneously breathing baby if their efforts are good through CPAP, right? You don't require invasive ventilation. So what basically mechanical ventilation has an advantage over this is it largely controls carbon dioxide in the blood, right? So looking at the physiological principles of it, so gas containing carbon dioxide basically has to move out of the lungs. So this is what we are targeting. So this will happen with good aerated alveolus, and we need to ensure that the dead space is as less as possible. And we need to understand that the most important thing which controls carbon dioxide is the tidal volume and the rates at which we ventilate the babies. So just a flashback about ventilation basics. I'm not going into the depths of it. So we need to know what is trigger. Trigger is what causes the breath to begin. The ventilator. So whether we do it or the ventilator does it, we need to look at it. So we have a concept of limit where it regulates the gas flow during the breath. So what determines how much the gas flow and till what limit it goes is determined by the limit of the ventilation. And we know when to start the next breathing is by your cycling of the ventilator. So this is the one which causes the breath to end. So this is just a basic, I'm not getting into the depths of it. So with this, we also should know the factors which actually influences the tidal volume during the pressure limited ventilation. So that means to say, so what are we going to set, and what are the influences which the lung has, which determines the volume of gas getting into the lungs. So we will set PEEP, that is positive end expiratory pressure, and PIP, that is peak inspiratory pressure. And this difference between this positive end expiratory pressure and the peak inspiratory pressure is what determines how much blood, how much gas which has to go into the baby's lungs. Secondly, we also will have to set the inspiratory time, for how long this pressure has to go. So, and we also will set the expiratory time, about, I mean, which determines how the gas will come out. And the tidal volume which reaches the baby's lungs also depends on the resistance and also the compliance of the lungs. And lastly, the flow rates. So these are the things which basically determines how much tidal volumes which are entering into the baby's lungs. So these are in a nutshell. I'm sure all of us know about this. So going beyond the basics of ventilation, so let's look at why we are worried about, why do we want to fine tune the ventilation. So because all of us know that we are ventilating a developing lung, so which might lead to the injuries in the lung, which can go on till years to come, right? So we all know about ventilator-induced lung injuries. So we know about atelectrotrauma, biotrauma, barotrauma, and volutrauma. So just to elaborate a little bit, barotrauma is something we feel that a pressure which goes into the lung causing the trauma in the lungs. Volutrauma is basically by the volume, and atelectrotrauma is possibly because of the VQ mismatch and also the shearing stress which happens on the alveolus. And biotrauma, obviously with the ET tube going inside the trachea, can trigger the injuries. So this is a well-known figure from which keeps repeating in all textbooks and all articles. So which tells us how the atelectrotrauma happens. If you can see this white box over here, so we will see lungs which is inflating and it is deflating. And so when we see the other side of it, so you have alveolus which are closed both in expiration as well as inspiration, and other side you have alveolus which is open both in inspiration and expiration. So atelectrotrauma basically happens when this middle part and the thing towards your left side is applied. All right. So when it is in a ventilated stable side of your alveolus, or when the ventilation is happening both in inspiration as well as expiration, so we have here less atelectrotrauma, which will also lead to less VQ mismatch. We need to decrease it. We also know about the risk factors of atelectrotrauma. We have different zones in the lungs. So zone 1, zone 2, and zone 3, we ideally should be ventilating the babies in zone 1, where at the end of expiration also we have the gas which is left inside the alveolus, right? So I'm not getting into the depths of it. So here also we are talking about the volume inside the alveolus or the lungs, right? So when you look at the other other traumas, that is volutrauma and barotrauma, so most of us presume that that barotrauma is the one, so pressure is the one which actually causes problem in the lungs. So this is what even people thought for, but things have changed, and we have been increasingly understanding that it is not the pressure in the lungs which actually causes problem, but actually the volume of air which gets into the lung which actually causes the trauma. So when they looked at the volutrauma versus barotrauma, so this was a study which happened, which they did on an animal model, I mean as early as 1989. So where they ventilated this animal model lung with peak inspiratory pressure of 45. So what they did was, so one group, what they did was they restricted the chest movement, so by tying or something like that, and they applied the pressure. So the lungs were not able to expand, so the air was not able to get in, but the pressure went inside the lung. And in another group, what they did was, so they gave the pressure, same amount of pressure, but they actually left the chest expand. So that means to say the volume went in, and they looked at the lung injury score. If you can see the green bar, which represent the one which with free chest wall movement. So the group which had more volume getting into the lungs had very increased, increased lung injury score when compared to the experimental group, where the chest wall was restricted. As mind you that the peak inspiratory pressure was both insane. So even if the pressure is being delivered to the lung, it is not causing much of a problem. So that's what it says. And they other rodent-based study which also had looked at the same thing, where they utilized 45 centimeter of water. So they looked at different modalities, that like low negative pressure and high volumes, and high pressure and low volume. That is the same thing here also. It was consistently shown that volutroma, that is, if the volume which is getting into the lung is more, the more was the lung injury. So it's not more so the pressure which actually was causing all the problems. So this has proven beyond doubt that the volume is the main culprit when compared to pressure. I think the so-called barophobia, which most of the physicians express about the phobia of the pressure, probably should be going. So other problems which we also encounter in our babies, other than these physical forces, are oxygen and carbon dioxide. We know that our preterm babies whom we ventilate the most will have less resistance to these oxygen radicals. So the most important what we need to understand is, with increasing understanding of the effect of PWP, that is positive end expiratory pressure, the high oxygen requirement has should be decreased. So because we know that if we ventilate the babies with adequate PWP, the less will be the ventilation perfusion mismatch, and the oxygen requirement also will be less. And of course, the volume going inside the lung as well as volume going out of the lungs also will determine how much oxygen the baby would get. So we need to be wary about the oxygen toxicity when we are ventilating. So other most important things which we need to understand, which we need to realize most often, is about the hypocarbias, more so than hypercarbias, because most of us, if I take the poll, so how many of you have seen PCO2 less than 13? Invariably, I would think almost everyone. And in our unit, so possibly I will say there is not even a single baby who will be ventilated not less, with PCO2 not less than 30 at least one instance or not. And we know that it actually has, hypocarbia has its own problems of pushing the baby to periventricular leukomalacia, probably cystic changes later on, and also causes sensory neural hearing loss. On an acute basis, it can actually has yo-yo effect, that is hypocarbia leading to hypercarbia and then causing injury in the brain. So the problems with PCO2 fluctuations are also too much. So we need to have a control over it. So with all this, and the lungs will be subjected to structural injury, biotrauma, there will be surfactant deficiency, and there will be problem with the lung development. And we all know that BPD is the other synonymous, is actually synonymous to all these things combined together. So with this in background, so we should have a lung protective ventilation. We have to ventilate, there is no other go, but we need to have lung protective strategies. So that means we need to establish an acceptable level of gas exchange. So not go too high or too low. We need to minimize volutrauma, because we know that it is the amount of gas which goes into the lung which causes problem. We need to minimize unilateral trauma, more so with open lung strategies, which I'll come to it in the subsequent slides. So when you talk about lung protective ventilation, the most important thing is tidal volume stabilization. So in the sense that, so when I push gas inside the baby's lungs, so the gas which goes in with each, the gas which goes in should be stable, because if it varies too much, there are chances of shearing forces which actually causing problems, which causes BPD, structural injuries, and all the traumas which we just spoke about. So we need to stabilize the volumes which is going in, that is tidal volume stabilization. And the increasingly popular new approach, that is permissive hypercarbia. of targeting PCO2s more than 45. So probably the upper limit could be anywhere between 55 to 60. So 45 to 55 PCO2 with your pH being normal should be our targets. And we also should, should be applying our open lung ventilation strategies. It could be high frequency or actually giving adequate PWP and so on. So with this background, so let us get into the ventilation modes. So most of us were using pressure controlled ventilation. Yes or no? So most of us would use SIPPV, SIMV, PC plus PSO. All these things were the nomenclatures which we grew up with during our residencies, right? So this is also true elsewhere also, because this is the most popular form of ventilation, that is the pressure controlled ventilation. Just to give you a brief, it is time cycle, pressure limited, continuous flow ventilation. So example is your intermittent positive pressure ventilation. It could be synchronized or it could be not synchronized. We use synchronized. So we use SIPPV, we use SIMV. Those are the examples of pressure controlled ventilation. So how does your pressure control ventilation work? So just have a look at these figures. So this infographic has been adopted from Dr. Satyan's book. So if so there is a set pressure which actually pushes the air inside the baby's lungs. All right. So more is the pressure which is pushing in, more is the volume here. If you have poor compliance, that is the lung is refusing to open up, you will have to use high pressure here to open up, or if you use some pressure, some amount of volume will, right? So if you were to represent that in a graph, so if you look at the pressure graphs here, scalars here, pressure, volume and flows here. So here you have a breath which is kicking off, and we have a set pressure. We have set the ventilator to give this much of pressure through the inspiratory time. The yellow bar represents the inspiratory time. So it actually gives so much of pressure for so much of time, and then it goes down, and then it cycles. And you see, depending on this pressure, you have the volume which is raising up, and after the pressure comes down, your volume also goes down. So is your flows. All right. Assume that you guys are clear. So let's look at another scenario in this pressure control ventilation where the lung is able to expand well. That is, the compliance is well. So with the same pressure here, we are able to push more air into this. All right. So this is an example of improved compliance. If you were to represent, so here the volume which actually is going inside the lung is actually the compliance. So with the same pressure, we are pushing more air because the compliance has increased. If you were to do it in the graph, so you see this, my pressure is not changed, but you look at the volume scalar here. You see the volume has increased for the same amount of pressures here. All right. So this actually has happened because the compliance has improved. So what we need to understand is, so here we are actually setting the pressure. We are controlling the ventilation with the pressures here. All right. All we have in our thing is the pressure, not anything else. So based on this, the volume is increasing or decreasing. So even if there is, some leak around the ETA tube, if you have improved compliance, a little bit of pressure is sufficient for you to inflate the lungs. So these are the basic things you guys need to understand when we are talking about pressure controlled ventilation. All right. So let's see what is volume control ventilation. So there in pressure control ventilation, we talked about the pressures which is controlling the volume. So here we are talking about volume directly. So what happens in volume control ventilation is, so a set tidal volume is delivered into the tube. That's all. So, and this traverses, and obviously it will go to the baby's lungs here, and then at the end of the expiratory limb towards the ventilation, you measure your flows here. Okay, so we are just pushing the gas inside without looking at what is happening into the lungs here. So let us give take the same kind of example. So here you see that some amount of volume is being going into the baby's lung with low compliance. You see the pressure is little less here. And if you were to extrapolate that to your pressure scalars and volume scalars, so here this is what we have said, these dotted lines. In the previous ones we had the dotted lines in the pressure scalar, here you have dotted lines here because we are concentrated on the volume. So we say the volume will increase to a certain extent, after that it has to cycle out. All right, so see this, so then your pressure will become a dependent variable here. As your flow is constant here, the volume starts increasing and reaches this point. You see the flow curve has become flattened here, but not your pressure wave. So pressure wave is constantly increasing. Before your inspiration it is peaking, and then once your volume is stopped, so the pressure goes down. So if we were to compare a low compliance versus an improved compliance for the same amount of volume, you will have to require less PIP because the lung can accommodate more air with less pressure. If you can see here, the volumes are the same here, but the pressure required to push the air into this is decreased here. That's also represented in this figure here. So here you see the volumes are the same, but the pressure required to push this volume into the baby's lungs is so less when compared to this. All right, so let's move on to this. So with understanding of the working of volume control ventilation and pressure control ventilation, so let's look at the difference between that. So this is just a graphical representation of what we just discussed. So here in pressure control, we are actually looking at only the pressure. We are controlling the pressure. So your volume will become dependent. In volume control mode of ventilation, your volume is what we are controlling. We are telling the ventilator to do so in terms of volume, and your pressure will become dependent in this. All right. Okay, so let's come to volume control ventilation. So when I'm talking about volume control ventilation, I want you guys to realize the fact that I'm not talking about guarantee yet. All right, I'm just controlling the volumes. All right, so let's see. The operator selects the tidal volume and the respiratory rate. So as we just discussed in the previous slide. So I'm just going to say the ventilator that you give this much of tidal volume into the circuit. That's what the operator is saying. And the ventilator, what will it do? It just mechanically delivers a constant preset VT. Suppose I want to give 8 ml of volume into the circuit. I'm not even telling it to give it to the baby. Just push it to the circuit. The ventilator keeps on increasing the pressure until it delivers 8 ml of volume of air into the circuit. All right. This is how it works. So the ventilator works very mechanically here. So here for the set ventilator, the ventilator tidal volume, the ventilator generates whatever pressure which is necessary to overcome the lung compliance and the airway resistance. So it doesn't think about what is the compliance, what's the resistance. Let me just give this volume and get done with this. This is what the ventilator thinks. So when the ventilator is working mechanically, we know that the problems could arise, correct? Because we said that the tidal volume which is being being measured is at the ventilator end. It's an expiration where we don't know what is happening to the baby's hand. We just know that the volume of air is going and we are checking it. So it actually gives an erroneous measurement of delivered tidal volumes because it doesn't look into the ET leak. If there is any ET leak, it doesn't take into account. It doesn't take into account the poor lung compliance, and also don't take into account the circuit compliance. So we'll come to it with the figure over here. So we know that we need to understand that what are the parameters which determine the tidal volume. So we spoke about it in the previous slide. So let's talk about in more detailed fashion here. So in the previous slide, I also talked about the compliance of the lungs of the circuit. Let's see what it is. So in a tidal volume control ventilation, some set volume is pushed into the circuit. So we know that there is a compression of gas into the circuit. Once the gas is pushed into the circuit, there could be compression of the gas in the circuit. And based on how compliant the circuit is, or in other words, how stiff the tubing is, so there could be an expansion of the circuit. We know this, right? So in all our reusable circuits, when we when we are using it for a long time, we know that they're very smooth. They have a tendency to expand, or probably have a tendency to collapse also. So when volume is pushed into the circuit, there could be an expansion in the circuit, all right, and there could also be some ET leaks on the other end. And so as we just discussed in the previous slides, if the compliance is less volume is getting into the baby's lung, or if the compliance is more volume gets into the baby's lung. And then the sensors measures the exhaled VT. We know that when the air from here to here has traversed till here, and we are looking at how much is the flow at the ventilator end, and we know the fallacies now, because if there is this estimation is not incorrect, is not correct. If there is ET leak, the estimation is not correct, and we also don't know what's the compliance of the respiratory system, how much the baby is getting, we don't know. All right, to override all this, so we need to have a sensor which is measured at the baby's end. All right, so which we usually do it in all our newborn ventilation. So I mean, this is just an example of a Draeger ventilator. So when we look at it, so what is the tidal volume which is delivered to the baby's lung here? To find it is not very simple. It's a calculation which looks into how much we have set here, and how much is the compliance of this circuit here, and what is the compliance of the lungs. This is all three variables will dictate how much volume will go into the baby's lung. So this figure is an important one to understand two things. One, how phallus is our just volume control ventilation. We are looking when we are looking at the flows at the ventilator end. And so what about this expansion of circuit? So we also should be mindful about the compliance of the circuit as well as ET tube leak. And we also, this figure also gives us a solution. So if you have a flow sensor over here, and probably if you are measuring the volumes of air going in and coming out, this will closely approximate the tidal volumes. All right. So with all this, to compensate for all these fallacies that, so just mechanically pushing the air into the circuit, so is not working, we know that. So just to make it more intelligent, so this Draeger came up with this this modality of ventilation called volume guarantee ventilation. So mind you, volume guarantee ventilation is used by Draeger ventilators. So we have other ventilators using the same principle but use different words. So for all practical purposes, we'll be using volume guarantee or targeted volume ventilation here in this talk. So from control to guarantee, what have we added? We have added intelligence in this. So we have put our thoughts into it to make the volume which is controlled to guarantee the tidal volumes getting to the baby's lung. Okay, so volume guarantee, for definition's sake, it is a pressure limited ventilation. It also has pressure component in this with a tidal volume guidance or tidal volume targeting. So it actually targets the tidal volume which is getting into the baby's lungs, and then takes a decision about how much flow it has to happen in the circuit. All right. So as an operator, I have absolute control of airway pressures. We know that, right? So we can control the pressures. I can set how much our pressures I want. But what ventilator does is it monitor what the changes at the patient end, and it actually looks at appropriate it actually looks at breath to breath to see how much pressure I need to give to push certain amount of air into the circuit. All right. So subsequent slides, I'll make it look little simpler for you guys. So another definition is, so if we so in the volume guarantee or tidal volume targeted ventilation, we're just modifying the pressure control ventilation, where we are targeting how much tidal volume will go into the baby by microprocessor directed adjustments of inflation pressure, that is PIP, and inflation time. So here the intelligence is in the microprocessor. All right. So here we are using the tidal volumes which are expired by the baby, not inspired by the baby. All right, why? Because so when we have just going back to the previous slide, excuse me. So when we have this ET leaks over here, so when we are looking at um, flow measurements at the baby's end where it approximates the tidal volumes going into the baby's lung. So where the inspiration is not a good thing to look at. So the ET leak happens more in the inspiration than in the expiration. So the closest volume what we can get is when we measure the flows at the baby's end, one. Second thing, when we look at the expiration, a second or the volume which is coming out of the lungs is what we need to look at. So what our volume guarantee does is the same. It looks at the volume which is coming out of the lung to decide how much pressure it has to give to push air into the circuit in the next breath. All right, so this is just an infographic for your understanding. So what we do is, so we'll just put the peak inspiratory pressure allowed. So that means to say, I'm telling the ventilator, see, this is what this is the maximum you can go up to. After that, you can't go beyond this pressure. All right, and the pressure which is regulated by, so this actually the pressure regulated by the ventilator. It can go up or down, not beyond this dotted line. And we have this volume which is inspired, which is given in this blue lines, and we have this tidal volume which is expired. So this is the, I just want you to concentrate on this for your understanding of how the how your volume guarantee works. So the upstroke is the inspired volume. So downstroke is your expired tidal volumes. All right. So based on this, so we'll look at how our volume guarantee works. All right. So here, so we're going to measure what how much is expired by looking at the area under this curve, or else the microprocessor will actually look at the area under this curve to look at how much volume is expired. So what it does is, if you can see this, there is an inspiration. So the pressure is driving, the pressure is increasing here, which is driving the volume into the baby's lungs. This is your inspiratory tidal volume. After it is stopping, so then there is your expiration which is happening. So I want this, so this ventilator to deliver a tidal volume of 4. So when I say I want to deliver a tidal volume of 4, I'm telling the ventilator that, see, this orange color one is the one which you need to, which has to be 4 ml. All right. So here, if you see, for this pressure, the tidal volume which is going in and probably coming out is 10 ml. All right. So what the ventilator does is, it measures this tidal volume. It thinks, oh, it realizes that, the tidal volume which is delivered for this pressure is too high. So it actually gives a feedback to the next breath. So you see what is happening to the next breath. So since this feedback is going to the next breath, the pressure decreases in a hope that, this tidal volume will decrease, because we need to decrease the tidal volume to 4, mind you. All right. So then the pressure decreases. So your tidal volume also decreases. So now it is decreased to 10. So from 10, it decreases to 9. And now the ventilator again thinks that, okay, is it sufficient? No, it is not sufficient. I mean, it is too high for this baby. Let me decrease the pressure again. And then the pressure decreases. And when the pressure decreases from the feedback, and you see the tidal volume again, for the next time it actually decreases. So if you can observe this from 10, it is intelligently guessing what could be the pressures, and it is going in a smooth forward direction, giving a feedback with each breath, and it is going down. So from 10 to 9 to 6, by decreasing the pressures, it itself is actually doing all the work. I am not involved in anything in this. All right. So what I have done is just to set a tidal volume of 4 and let the ventilator work on its own. And then once your tidal volume is 6, it again realizes that it is more. Then again it gives a feedback, and then it actually decreases again. And then there you go, you get your tidal volume of 4. So probably to deliver a tidal volume of 4, actually I should have set a pressure of here, but I don't know what the pressure requirement was. But the ventilator has actually come to this point of, setting a appropriate pressure so that a set tidal volume is going into the baby's lung. So for a Drager ventilator, that is your Babylon 8000, it doesn't do very drastically. This is just an example from that. So where it actually takes each breath and decreases it in a smart way rather than decreasing it all at once in over 6 breaths to achieve this pressures. So to normalize the pressure from here to here, so whatever the initial pressure was to here, it takes 6 breaths is what I'm trying to say. So it is more gradual. It doesn't make it too hurried changes to come to this tidal volume. So this is how the volume guarantee works. If you see this, there's a lot of intelligence involved in this. This is what the microprocessor do here. All right, so after this, once the tidal volume is achieved, so it again gives a feedback to the machine saying that, okay, this is enough. So this is what the pressure you need to continue with. So not increasing or not decreasing, the ventilator will give this kind of pressure to achieve this tidal volume of 4. All right. So just to differentiate between the control versus guarantee, a more crude method versus a more intelligent method of it. So when you look at the tidal volumes, though in both the modalities, it is set by the clinician. In volume controlled, I'm just telling that you need to push this much of air into the circuit. Here also, I'm trying to tell the ventilator, this is the volume I want the lung to receive, right? So here in volume control, the determinant of tidal volumes reaching the baby is dependent on circuit compliance. More is the circuit compliance, less is the air getting into the baby's lung, and it also dependent on ET leaks. But in case of volume guarantee, the ET leaks is the only thing which is probably making our work little difficult here. So the flow rate is set by the clinician. So the clinician, so we can decide how much flows the baby has to get. So here in volume guarantee, since it's a dynamic process, so it is variable and it is determined by the ventilator because it has become intelligent now. So what about the inspiratory time? So inspiratory time in volume control, it depends on the set inspiratory volume and flow. So it doesn't look at anything. It just looks at this is the volume which has to go no matter what it is. So, but here in volume guarantee, most often we combine it with the pressure control modes, like in case of, it could be an assist control mode also, where it could be time or flow cycle. So what determines the peak inspiratory pressure? So here in volume control, we saw in one of the graphs that the peak of the inspiratory pressure will be achieved at the end of inspiration. Here in volume guarantee, the peak is achieved little early in the inspiration itself. Okay, so it's not a knee-jerk, jerky kind of pressure which is working in volume guarantee. So here we know that determinant of the peak inspiratory pressure is the lung compliance in actually the volume control, but in guarantee it is actually being done dynamically with each breath to set the target tidal volumes. All right. So if I'm going too fast, I'm sure there's a lot of things here. So I've actually shared the PPT with Abhishek. So probably all of you guys can get it from Abhishek regarding if at all you guys want the PPTs. Okay. So let's look at how the ventilator thinks inside. So just look at the software algorithm. So the clinician will set a tidal volume. So peak inspiratory pressure, this is the max pressure which the ventilator will have to take. We'll set the PWP, we'll set the TI, and we set the flows. So the Babylon or volume guarantee ventilator will deliver the next breath. So with the next breath, it will determine whether the expiratory tidal volume is equal to it or not. If it is not equal to what we have set, so it adjusts the PIP to make it VT equals V set. And if it is equal, so then it leaves the PIP the same. So this is how the computer thinks. This is the computer language. So what we saw in the previous slide, this is how the computer is understanding. Okay, so other aspects also we need to look at it. So this is just an example of how our volume guarantee works. So this basically compares the measured tidal volume to the target volume and automatically regulates the peak inspiratory pressure. We just discussed that. Sorry. And then regulation of PIP is in response to the exhaled tidal volume. So this is your exhaled tidal volume, so which actually is giving feedback to the next PIP which is going. So depending on the tidal volume here, it is determining whether it has to decrease the pressure or whether it has to increase the pressure. Mind you, the Dragger also has a safety feature that suppose if by any chance the volume increases to more than 130% of the target, because the baby is for any reason, it has a safety feature. If it reaches to 130% of the tidal volume, it cuts off the pressure. Probably it cuts off the I time also. So other than that, it doesn't touch the I times. It just does what it gets feedbacks from the previous exhaled tidal volumes to set the PIP for the next volume. So this is how it is. You can see this here. The tidal volume, the third thing, so the tidal volume is achieved here. So then it thinks that, okay, this is the pressure it has to give, and the next breath it actually gives the same pressure, a little bit more than the working pressure, and you see the tidal volume has increased, and then it realizes, oh, okay, this pressure is actually causing increase in the tidal volume, let me decrease it, and now it decreases it again. So this is how it is dynamic with each breath, and so this is just a dramatic representation of it, but in actual practice, it actually takes at least 6 breaths to normalize the target tidal volume. So if it were to be only this, we would have been very happy. But what we need to understand is, so baby also has spontaneous breaths, right? So it adds on to what we are actually already controlling. The baby also wants to control the breathing, right? So this will add on to the headache of it. So let's see. So this is a working of a volume guarantee in a spontaneously breathing. So in this graph, the infant's own inspiratory effort is drawn in green. If you see this, so this is not shown in the ventilator usually, so it is superimposed on the ventilator pressure. So you can see this, the green ones are the spontaneous efforts by the babies, and this is the ventilator pressure, and this contribution is not measured or displayed by the ventilator. When an actively breathing infant who was contributing to substantially to the pressures, if it fails to take stress. So let's look at this. So here, apart from the machine, the baby is also taking breath, so that's why your volume is more here. So, and then here, or if the ventilator is actually giving less pressures, the baby is compensating by one more spontaneous effort, so your tidal volume is okay. But the ventilator thinks that, okay, this is sufficient. So then if the baby is not breathing, or if the baby is not adding on to the efforts here, then you see the volume which is less. Okay, and then again a spontaneous effort comes, and then the volume increases. But actually here the ventilator gets little confused, and then to achieve the normal target tidal volume, it will actually take some time. Suppose here the baby, after the spontaneous effort, has stopped breathing here, and then the ventilator takes over. To achieve the target tidal volume, it is actually taking some time. If you can see this, the baby's contribution is not there here in the next one. So your volume is less, the ventilator has realized it, and it is slowly increasing the pressure to make sure the volume is also increasing. So this is how Draeger and most of the other ventilators also look at working with a spontaneous breaths. All right. So with this, two breaths, one is triggered and non-triggered breaths. So when the baby is trying to breathe and the baby is not trying to breathe, so which one to follow? Sometimes the ventilator might get confused, because we know that the ventilator is actually giving some effort and the baby is taking some effort. So now the new algorithm which Draeger and all the other things have is, they are able to differentiate between which is the spontaneously triggered breaths where we need to be careful, which are the non-triggered breaths. So what it does is, so it takes these two things in a separate manner, in the sense for trigger breath, that is spontaneous breaths, it has a separate working pressure. For non-trigger breaths, it knows that there is no effort from the baby, so it looks at only the it looks at only the ventilation, and it takes it. So it totally detaches the spontaneous breaths from non-spontaneous breaths, and it will have different algorithms for both, despite the baby being ventilated continuously. So if you can see this, so with this it is, so if you can see this here in this green, which is telling that the ventilator, telling us that the baby is actually trying to breathe, your tidal volume is stabilized, and then you see the the pressure has increased over here, and this feedback will go to the not the next breath, because the next breath is a spontaneous breath. This feedback will go to the next breath, so which has not got any spontaneous breath. So this feedback, the second feedback of this tidal volume, will go to the next spontaneously triggered breath. So it kind of dissociates triggered and non-triggered breath. So ultimately, if you can see this, your targeted tidal volumes are achieved, and it on a more consistent basis. All right. So for those of you whom think is a little difficult to understand, so just understand that volume guarantee has different algorithms for spontaneous breath as well as not spontaneous breaths, and the fluctuation is not very drastic, so that even to normalize it will take time. So even to disorganize also it will take time. All right. So ultimately it is actually delivering a constant tidal volumes. So when we are constantly talking about tidal volumes, so do we know what exactly the tidal volumes we're targeting, or what are the tidal volumes we need to be looking at? So this has been it's an ongoing question. So this one particular study which looked at different volume targets on different volume targets for preterm babies. As we know that the volume is the one which actually causes problem in the baby. They looked at so whether 3 ml per kg is okay or 5 ml per kg is okay, and which of it will cause lung injury. So the dark bars here represents a tidal volume of 3 ml per kg, and the gray ones represent 5 ml per kg. They looked at the inflammatory markers of the lungs in these preterm infants. They saw when they used low tidal volumes, that is, if you can observe this black bars, so the lung injury markers like IL-8, IL-6, and TNF-alpha were more when compared to tidal volumes of 5. So which had less inflammations. So they concluded that so probably we need to ventilate preterm babies with 5 ml per kg to decrease the lung injury. And another study which looked at okay, so that probably is the initial so that is the initial tidal volume. So let's see what happens over days. So they also they actually realized that the initial tidal volumes could be little varied as the baby grows, even when adjusted to the weight of the baby and gestational age of the baby. So it actually varies, and there is no particular ml per kg is what we need to understand is the is actually what we need to understand. So it depends on whether we are initiating, so what's the postnatal day, and probably when you look at the further slide, we'll realize it depends on the condition of the baby also. So this is from Neo Reviews, so where they adopted the tidal volume guidelines from one of the studies, and they actually gave 10th to 90th percentile of the tidal volumes which you need to do, which we need to target based on the weight range. So it actually varied anywhere between 3.2 to 8.9. So the 50th centile was between 5.4 to 6.9. Based on that, so expert recommendation was to keep the tidal volumes at around 4 to ml per kg, and we know that this is not very uniform, and it's not very easy. So different studies have looked at what probably could be the tidal volumes which are ideal. So this is just a compilation of all the studies which have looked at different gestational age, different birth weights, and different stages of the baby, and different problems like they have looked at RDS, they have looked at evolving BPD, they have looked at severe BPD. So the consensus probably amongst all the studies are to keep the tidal volumes between 4 to probably 6.5, and maybe in established severe BPD and evolving BPD we might have to target higher volumes in this. So as for our classical teaching, it still holds good that we can ventilate the babies between 4 to 6 ml per kg, and it is evidence based, except for in severe BPD cases where it is an exception. So till now we understood what was volume controlled, so how we made it intelligent and called it volume guarantee, or tidal volume targeted ventilation, and we also know also have realized that what is the tidal volume, so how much is the tidal volume which we need to target. So let's see, to reinforce you guys about the advantages of this volume target or volume guarantee rather than not using the volume guarantee or volume target. Let's see. So this is a classical examples, so which we all talk about. So where it's a typical example of a baby who is born now, and where this graph, the x-axis shows the time and the y-axis shows the tidal volume. So we have set a particular PIP. Let's say I have started with 18/6 for this baby, and I have given a surfactant after some 1 or 2 hours of life. And you see for the set PIP of what I have set of 18, which is not changed over time, my tidal volume, which is actually entering the baby, has started gradually increasing. So initially, my tidal volumes were around 4 ml, and with the same PIP after the surfactant, since the compliance has increased, so the tidal volume has gradually increased. If because I have not touched the PIP at all, I have not adjusted the pressures. So let's look at the same thing in a different baby where I have put a volume guarantee. So what we have done here is, so we have started off with a volume guarantee ventilation. I have told the ventilator to keep a tidal volume of say 4, all right, so throughout. So I have set the maximum PIP which the ventilator can take as 20. So if you can look at it, initially the baby, the ventilator was requiring around 18 18 pressures to achieve a tidal volume of 4. And after I gave surfactant here, so since there was improvement in the compliance, you see that my tidal volumes are ensured at 4 here, but the PIP to achieve the same tidal volumes has decreased over time. And we all know that this happens over minutes to hours. This doesn't take so many days for it to happen. So since it's a very dynamic thing, that once the surfactant is given, the compliance is bound to improve immediately. So your PIP required to achieve this tidal volume also will decrease. So this is the difference here. So you see the two differences here, where I have not bothered to see test the PIP. So where I have actually given surfactant here, I've told the ventilator to do its work, and the ventilator itself is actually has done its work, and it is helping the baby here. So here, since I have not looked at changing the PIP, the tidal volume has started increasing. So we know that when we look at these two graphs, which is the baby probably would end up with BPD with the first graph. So where the baby is under pressure limited ventilation without application of volume guarantee. So let's look at another thing. So where we are using SIPPV, it's a modality of assist control in Traeger with VG mode. So where here the left side graph looks at the orange bar shows VG off and green bar says VG on. I have targeted a tidal volume of 4.5 ml. So the number of breaths which are targeting this 4.5 ml is more. The y-axis represents the number of breaths, is more when the VG is on. So the more number of breaths are being given around 4.5 ml when we compare to other when we compare to plain SIPPV or assist control mode. So this also says that so we are achieving the target tidal volume for most of the breaths. Just as an example of another one, so where a baby is being ventilated with SIPPV, and intermittently we are adding VG. The dark blue ones shows us when the SIPP was added with VG, and the lighter blue shows when the SIPP, the SIP was not without VG. If you can see this, the y-axis shows the peak inspiratory pressure. When the volume guarantee was not there, you see the pressure required to deliver was much more. But when we add VG in it, the pressure required to deliver the volume goes down. So if you can see this, the pressure is varying here, but we know that it doesn't matter to the baby because pressure causes less harm to the baby than volume. So when we also look at the trends on VG, I urge all of you to go and look at it. So it will be very, very obvious in your ventilator. So switch on your SIMV or SIPPV plus or without VG. So this is one example of it, and look at the trends in your Drager or any of the ventilator which you are using. So here, when initially the volume guarantee was turned on, if you can see the yellow graph here, the tidal volume was so much consistent despite the maps were going up and down. So this doesn't matter to me because maps can go up and down, it doesn't bother. So what I'm bothered is how much the tidal volume is varying. So once my VG is turned off, you see this, the pressure has is uniform here, But you see what has happened to the tidal volumes. It has all become chaotic. You see this, it has increased so much in few breaths that, so it probably would cause injury to the baby if you keep this tidal volume to fluctuate so much above the required tidal volumes. So this is another example of probably how a EEG is working physiologically with the graphs. So VG is a most popular term which we use. Sorry, because most of us use Draeger and we are very comfortable with this. With the advent of volume guarantee, more and more ventilator manufacturing companies have taken it up and probably have given their own kind of model modification, but actually most of it works on this VG principle itself. Apart from little deviations, maybe they have added more benefits or decreased the problems which the VGs had. So I'm sure most of the units now have SLE 5000 or SLE 6000. So where we can use this mode called targeted tidal volume plus. If we use TTV plus, that is targeted tidal volume plus, it is like adding a volume guarantee into your SIPP or SIME mode of ventilation. Here also it uses the exhaled VT and it actively modulates the inflation pressure to target the desired tidal volumes. And here the other improvisation from volume guarantees, there is an increase in the rise time of the pressure waveform to improve the chance of effectively limiting VT. So it has a modulatory effect of the flows also, where in Draeger we actually set the flow rates. So another added advantage with SLE is, so they also offer leak compensation feature. So that is when the ventilator senses that there is leak, so it actually gives an additional volumes to compensate for the leaks. So this is what the company claims. So but actually when you use TTV plus, it's as good as using your volume guarantee. And this another, all of us have used this. Becke Servois was the most popular ventilator, and which probably is increasingly being replaced by Servo N and U now, which is more targeted to newborns. We all know the problems with this Servo I ventilator. When we use pressure regulated volume control, that is PRVC, there is always overestimation of the tidal volumes, because it more so acts as volume control mode, and the gas flow is measured at the ventilator end. So here PRVC also works in the principle of your volume guarantee. It is time cycle, pressure controlled, and it also has assist control mode also. Here the tidal volume is measured at the ventilator end. It uses the tidal volume of the previous cycle to regulate the pressure of the next breath. But as I said, since it overestimates the tidal volume, so this probably is not an appropriate thing to work in our newborn babies. But if you are using Servo N, I don't know if any of the units have it. I have not used it. So it seems they have looked into all these things, and it is working like VG mode in Draeger. So that is Servo N. So Bennett 840 also has volume targeted mode. So it actually gives two different volume targets. So one is volume control plus, where it gives mandatory inflations in assist control as well as SIMB mode of ventilation. And it also gives another mode called volume support, where it supports spontaneous breaths in the spontaneous ventilation mode. But actually it is primarily done for adult patients. I'm not aware if we can use it for newborn babies. I'm sure they must have some modifications for newborn babies also. And Hamilton G5 also has volume targeted adaptive pressure control, which resembles our volume guarantee. It's functionally similar to it, but this also is basically looked in adult patients rather than in newborn. So until now, the evidence and what people have been using and been published is more so with Babylon 8000, and now probably VN500 has taken over from Draeger. And the other thing which they've started using is the SLE ventilator. More and more evidence are for these two ventilators rather than the other ventilator which I just mentioned. So with all this thing in background, so why this slide I'm particularly putting it up to reinforce the importance of PWP, because if we don't achieve adequate if we don't open the lungs well, no matter what kind of ventilation you are using, it probably is going to go for a waste. This again is from Dr. Satyan's illustration. So we know that in inflation and exhalation, if you can compare the left and right side, left side is inflation, right side is exhalation. So in inflation, you have your expanded alveoli, and exhalation, it actually decreases. So this is a ventilated and stable alveolus. And there are other zone where you have the alveolus which are open, but in exhalation, it actually has collapse. So it actually causes recruitment in inflation, derecruitment in exhalation. It causes unstable alveolus, which causes atelectotrauma. And we all know that there could be some of the areas in the lungs which are not ventilated either in inflation or exhalation. So the point why I'm trying to the point what I'm trying to make is, so whatever we do, whatever tidal volumes we target or the modes we use should be after opening this zone, so which is the unventilated and the unstable. I'm not going into how exactly we do it, so I'm sure Dr. Venkateshan sir should be looking into how we open the lungs. On top of it, you ventilate the babies. So this is the basic, and tidal volume is probably on top of it. So as we all know that as the saying goes, the mantra should be open the lung and keep it open. So opening the lung probably will be with the pressure, and to keep it open, probably your volume guarantee will do it. So once you have opened all the alveolus. All right. So with all this, let's get into the practical aspects of it. So this clinical guidelines of volume targeted ventilation has been taken from Goldsmith, and also Essential of Newborn Ventilation by Dr. Satyan. So I'm sure it clears most of our doubts, and probably we can adopt it to the protocol if we are trying to adopt volume guarantee ventilation in our units. So how do we initiate the volume targeted ventilation or volume guarantee ventilation? The initiation should be as soon as possible. So wherever we are ventilating the babies, so we should be considering volume guarantee to it. So as simple as that. Mode of synchronized ventilation, whether you would want to choose SIME or SIPPV, based on your unit protocol, you choose it and you add on volume guarantee to it. And when we choose the basic mode of synchronized ventilation, we need to set PWPTI rates as necessary. And the most important thing, ensure the flow is calibrated and function properly. So when I said the microprocessor is the brain of your ventilator, so this flow sensor is probably the sensor, is the sense which actually gives a feedback to your microprocessor. If your flow sensor is not working, then your brain won't work. As simple as that. So you need to make sure your flow sensor is calibrated and it is functioning properly to pick up the flows and volumes, and then VT. So based on the disease pathology which we just discussed in the previous slide, and then a PIP limit of 3 to 5 centimeter of water above the expected PIP. So if I expect the baby's peak inspiration 16 to 18, so I'm going to set the maximum PIP, that is 3 to 5 centimeter above PIP. So this is the breathing which so if all after this, when I started, if target if my tidal we need to ensure is position, whether is it too high, which is whether it's too high. Probably if my position is correct, then I will have to increase my peak, because pressure to inflate the lungs probably explains the resistance. And subsequently, so before you do an ABP, please observe the chest. Please observe how the chest rises, assess the breath sounds, look at respiratory rate, look at how much the peak inspiratory pressure is, look at the saturations, look at if there are any retractions to modify the parameters. So once you look at how much is the peak requirement, so we'll have to readjust the maximum pressure limit for this. So usually the PIP limit is around 25 to 30% of it, of the actual delivered PIP. And the other most important thing is, so document the range of working PIP. So most often we see our residents documenting the the PIP what we set in the Draeger ventilator, which actually is the maximum allowed PIP, but that's not the working PIP. The working PIP is what you get when you look at how much the ventilator is actually delivering. So for example, in Draeger, if you press measure one button, there it shows how much pressure the baby is actually requiring to deliver the tidal volume. So you need to document that range of working of PIP. So, and it also will be fluctuating. You need to tell your nurses that, okay, yes, it's bound to fluctuate. You need to write the ranges of PIP which is being delivered, not what is set, because what is set is very obvious. And then based on the clinical response, we can adjust VT in steps of 0.5 ml per kg, because the range we said it is between 4 to 6.5. So you can actually go up or come down. So, but definitely not less than 4. And then at the end of it, so when we are to adjust VTs, the tidal volume should be adjusted primarily with the pH, not with PCO2, because we know that the tidal volumes are set. It cannot increase beyond 6.5 to 7. It cannot decrease to less than, say, 3.5 or so. So probably we need to see if the pH has some so lower PIP limit, which also can be set in some of the ventilator, could be set, and it should be kept at around 25 to 30%, and it could also be the alarm limits for you guys. And so at the end of it, with all these adjustments, we need to see if the appropriate, if we have set appropriately everything, and it will be basically by clinical assessment. So once the baby is been on tidal volume, so we know that based on the improving lung compliance or worsening lung compliance, the ventilator will adjust the pressure. We need not look into the pressures. So once the baby's compliance has improved and probably the baby is ready to get extubated, so this is how the approach should be. We need to look at the pH, which is more than 7.35 with good respiratory dive, and we need to ensure that we have withheld the sedation, and probably some units would reduce the sedation volumes. And the other most important thing is, when we are weaning, we need to understand volume guarantee itself is a weaning mode of, is a automatic weaning mode. We need not look at decreasing the tidal volumes to wean it. So even if you have to decrease it, please don't decrease it beyond 3.5 to 4 ml per kg. Keep it at that. And we need to look at the graphs to see if there are any apneas or excess periodic breathing. So that means that the baby is not having spontaneous breaths. That will give you a clue. And we need to consider extubation if the inflation pressure or the required PIP, which is the required PIP is between 12 to 15. So this is the good time we can extubate the baby. And then the rest of the protocol would continue. Make sure the preterm baby is on caffeine. Baby who is less than 1.5 to 2, you might consider NIPPV, CPAP, or HFNC mode after extubating the baby. So with all things, so we spoke about the ventilation, we spoke about the different modes of ventilation, then we came to volume, then we looked at how we made the ventilator intelligent, and we saw how it works, and we also understood how probably it would help in day-to-day basis, and we also saw so how to initiate, sustain, and decrease it. Okay, so why have we taken so much of time? Is because of this. We have now evidence to say that if you put a baby on volume targeted ventilation versus without adding targeted ventilation, probably we are helping the babies in decreasing the death or BPD at 36 weeks of gestational age, where your RRs are 0.73. That is, the risk is coming down by almost to 25 to 27%. And your number needed to benefit is 8. That is, if you put 8 babies on this volume targeted ventilation, you're going to save 1 baby of death or BPD at 36 weeks of gestational age. If you don't add, so probably the converse happens. And other benefits which the with the Cochrane meta-analysis also has shown is there is decreased incidence of pneumothorax. The mean days of mechanical ventilation was less by almost 1.5 days when a baby is put on volume guarantee mode of ventilation. and the rates of hypocarbia, which we would dread because it would cause PVL, cystic changes, sensitive hearing loss, was much less in volume targeted ventilation when compared to pressure limited ventilation. And also the incidence of grade 3 or 4 IVH was less by almost half, and the incidence of PVL with or without grade 3 or grade 4 IVH was also decreased by half. So these are the advantages we have when we add on volume targeting to the pressure limited ventilation, which we routinely use in our units. So with this, we all know that most of us are hesitant to put this VG mode, and in my unit, so probably nurses hate it, and some of the residents feel like, it's all they feel that it's always a troublemaker in the unit because it always keeps giving alarms and stuff, and sometimes we don't know what is happening to the baby. Let's put the baby on, let's take the VG off. So before you come to this kind of conclusion or have these thoughts in mind, so I would want you to look at all these things from this next slides. So this is the most common alarm, isn't it? So low VT alarms. So when you have a low VT alarm, so we need to understand that there could be so many reasons for it, where that just means to say that probably there is some problem which is happening which needs troubleshooting. So let's look at what all could be the causes for your ventilator to beep this alarm. Maybe the lung is very stiff, is requiring more pressure. So since you have limited your pressures to a certain extent, the ventilator is asking you that, please increase the pressure, please allow me to give more pressure, is what the ventilator is telling you. So if there is increased resistance, they may be at the circuit and ET tube or the lungs, the ventilator wants to give more pressure. So if you have curtailed that, then it will alarm this. And if by your PAP limit, so we said we need to keep it at least 3 to 5 centimeter of water above the working, or 25 to 30% above or below it. If we keep it at, so suppose the baby is requiring around 18 presses to deliver a set volume, you have kept your your maximum of 18 or 19, let's say. I know that most of the breaths will go probably touch 19, some of the breaths go to 20, some of the breaths go to 16. So when it goes above 18 or 19, it definitely will beep. So we need to give that breather for the ventilator. And this is another important thing which you guys need to understand. So the alarm delay, if we keep it too short, so which is an option in Draeger, so where when there is a problem, you want the ventilator to not keep banging, start giving alarms as soon as it is a problem. We need to, because we know that sometimes there could be a little bit of secretion, we can go in the next breath. So sometimes the circuit position could be changed, the ET2 position could be changed, or the baby is breathing, whatever it is. So breath to breath, it actually keeps changing. So we need to see that all the problems what we encounter is on a persistent basis. For that, at least we need to give 5 to 6 breaths, because the ventilator itself will take so much of time to adjust this ventilator. So please keep the alarm little delayed, at least say 10 to 15 seconds at least, before it actually starts giving a alarm, because we know that it is a dynamic thing which can get normalized in 5 to 6 breaths. If there is a large ET leak, obviously you will have your low VT. So you need to look at, you need to see if you have used the appropriate ET, or if its tube has come out, or if there is any problem in the circuit. And the other thing is, if the flow sensor is not functioning well, so obviously you will have false low VT alarms. And if the baby is probably, this is what we see in babies, probably has seizures, or probably the baby is crying so vigorously that the ventilator is not able to push the volume into the lungs, because the baby is actively expiring all the time. So the ventilator probably will give VT alarms. So we need to see what is happening to the baby, whether the baby is having some seizures or breath holding, or if the baby is actively crying. So we need to do the necessity to tackle it rather than looking at the alarms here. All right. So other things could be, you also would have seen that a ventilator is not generating any PIP. Probably this will happen if the tube is disconnected or the set VT is very low. So there could be a low PIP which is not increasing despite low or absent VT. So this is a safety feature in Draeger, where the trigger can sense a complete ET obstruction. Once it senses that there is complete ET obstruction where the volume is not going at all inside, what it does, it decreases the PIP to half immediately, so that the inadvertent increase in the PIP won't happen in the next breath. So we need to be watchful of it. And there could be persistently low PaCO2. So this is what we often see as more and more evidence is actually coming. So we need to be looking at pH rather than PCO2 in adjusting tidal volumes, because we know that pH is the primary thing which actually triggers the respiratory mechanisms. We need to see what is the cause of PaCO2. Is it the metabolic acidosis as a compensation where the baby is taking away PaCO2, or if the baby is too much agitated where the PaCO2 is getting washed away because the baby is taking too much of breaths. And if you see the baby is having too much of tachypnea, and if you see the baby is increased workup breathing, maybe our VT set is very low, or the baby is agitated. So you'll have to do the necessary things to decrease the workup breathing. So with all these things in mind, so the other thing, few things which we need to be which we need to keep, which we also see in day-to-day practice when we look at volume guarantee. If the baby is having very high spontaneous breaths, so the PIP might be equal to PWP. You would see that in the graph there is no rise in PIP at all because the baby is breathing on its own. That is not been represented in the graph. So the ventilator is not giving any breath. So the tidal volume is delivered by the baby's spontaneous breath itself. So the ventilator is actually not giving any breath. So what does it mean? It is as good as giving ET-CPAP, isn't it? So because the baby, it is not because the ventilator is actually not giving PIP on its own, right? So this could be counterproductive in sometimes, because if the baby stops breathing, then setting off VT will be a problem, or the baby could tire out by spontaneously breathing because the ventilator is not assisting in breaths at all. So one of the solutions could be you can probably switch to SIMV, so that some of the breaths could be probably assisted by the ventilator along with the VG. If there is a flow sensor or blocked or malfunction, so suppose you have ventilated a baby on VG, you have given surfactant, you know that the PIP which required by the baby should actually come down. So what if there is a block in the flow sensor at that point of time, the flow sensor is not working and the baby's compliance is improving, since your flow sensor is not blocked, the ventilator might give your maximum PIP, not the working PIP, which actually can be counterproductive. So it can give inadvertent high PIP and volumes in a weaning mode if your flow sensor is not working. And we also should be wary about auto triggering, because it can also cause hypocarbia. If there is auto triggering, more and more breaths will be targeted. Unnecessarily more minute ventilation will cause hypocarbia in these babies. In SIMV with VG, we need to understand that only the supported breaths are targeted. Suppose the baby, the ventilator lets the baby breathe in between, since it's not coming in its purview. So those are the breaths which the baby has to work. The ventilator is not giving guarantee to the spontaneous breaths in this SIMV mode of ventilation, where it is not supported. Only the supported breaths are volume guaranteed. So this is just a small refresher for it. So this is what we always see, right? So VT low, check settings. So if you can see this, if you look, so graph also can give us a clues. If you can see this, the pressure which is actually increasing, you are not getting a plateau at all. Maybe the pressure what we have set is very low. That's why the VT is low here. And here, if you see, it is actually going. So the pressure graph is going, and you see that there is no plateau at all. So probably the flows, if I increase it, will get a plateau to me, where the VT will, or the tidal volume will get normalized. This is an example of setting low flows when you're using tidal volumes. When you're using volume guarantee, because we know flow rate also contributes to the tidal volumes. And this is another example of VT low, where it's actually showing, you see that there is no plateau here in your pressure graph. Maybe you look at the flows, it is also normal. And now probably you need to look at the I time. because if you have decreased your inspiratory time, your pressure graph is actually getting cut in between itself before it is actually delivering the tidal volume. Here in this case, you might have to increase your TI based on your flow graphs, flow scalars. So just to summarize, so with all this evidence and all this practical aspects and understanding it, we now probably can conclude that it is physiologically more logical, and we have enough evidence to say that this it helps. More so, we need to understand that so very few modalities what we do in NICU will protect our babies from BPD, and targeting volumes is one of those. And it's so the most important thing is we need to become familiar, and we need to become familiar with the specific features, and also be looking at the troubleshooting of it when we actually get the problems, rather than shying away from using volume guarantees. And I would advocate we need to start using more and more, as I said. So so all babies who probably would go on to ventilation should be put on volume guarantee. So this is just a reiteration from Goldsmith. It says it's probably the time to abandon the ventilator-induced lung injury in favor of physician-induced lung injury, because we are the ones who actually select the ventilator settings. If you don't set it well, we definitely are going to harm the baby. So thank you. So I can take up any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Prashant, for that. I would say elaborate and very clear concepts that I think you have explained to us about what is volume and what is volume guaranteed ventilation. And I think the practical tips of initiating and troubleshooters was excellent, I would say. And
Thanks,
Abhishek, can I just go through that? There was